Hello everyone, my name is James Suhan. I am a graduate support engineer here at E1 Solutions. And today I'm going to be covering about a good one of the two halves, as the way I always like to view it, of the Dynamics GP Gateway, and that's going to be the SQL side. So kind of a little breakdown to begin with. Gateway's kind of broken down into two different pieces, as I always saw it, with there's the side of the SQL that connects to your SQL Server, and then there's the networking side which connects to your IIS and thus to PopDoc. So today I'm going to kind of break down that SQL side in this video, and we can kind of go from there and show some of the more details and kind of what you should be looking for. So here we are in the virtual machine here. And with that, to start off, one of the big keys that goes into the GP gateway is obviously you need SQL. You got to be able to connect your SQL server, because you could have your networking set up perfectly, but if you can't actually reach the server, then you're not going to get anything through. You're not going to be able to validate your connection. Nothing's really going to go through. So kind of starting off, one of the big keys is the user you want to use for your gateway. So I know a lot of people, you will have, like, you have your SA account, and your first thought might be to use that, which you can, but typically we recommend against doing that. One of our best recommendations for the SQL side of things, at least user-wise, is to just create a SQL user that is going to be used just for the gateway, only the gateway. Nobody should be logging in with this. This shouldn't be a regular usage user for anything you need to do in SQL. This should be just for the gateway and only the gateway. So I have one created right here. I just called it PD Gateway, Pop.Gateway. So we're going to show the properties of this. So as you can see, PD Gateway, it is a SQL Server authentication user. A Windows Auth user will not work for this connection. It does need to be SQL Server. So I just have my password right here. And as you can see, I also do not have anything checked for the password policy. So the main reason for that is, like I said, this user is just used for the gateway. This is not something that people are regularly going to be using in SQL. So, and then anytime, like if you keep it normal and you need to, let's say you create it, you leave user must change the password at the next login. You could go through, create it, it's all great, the user is awesome. You go to plug it in into PopDoc and you get nothing. It won't connect, you're causing all sorts of issues, not good. So, and then you have to come in and change the password again, which obviously maybe you have maybe your IT team's a third party organization you work with and communication's not great, and that can take some time. Whereas if you uncheck that, you won't have to worry about it. And then same goes for password expiration. If you need to change the password at all for this, it's something you should be doing on your own volition. You shouldn't be forced to do it, because if the password you have set in there expires, then that connection between your GP data and PopDoc is cut off. And you can't fix that until you go in, change the password here, open up the installer, run it back through. There's a lot of steps that go into it. So it's easier to just keep it. You put the password in, that password is the password. You only need it just for the login on the gateway when you punch it in the credentials through the installer. And that's the only time you'll ever have to use it. So this is also the same thing if you're going to do like an SL gateway or a SQL Server gateway. You can use this user for that as well. We just recommend this is kind of a good idea to have. So kind of going through this, we got this kind of good. Server roles really doesn't matter what the server role is, just because this is just a regular user that's just going to be used for your GP database. They're not like I said before, you're not going in and creating a bunch of stuff with this user. You're just keeping it just so it can get into SQL. So user mapping, this is the one that really does matter the most. So for this example, I'm using this GP2 database. That's going to be my GP database. By standard, it should be Dynamics or anything else if it's changed, but by default, it should just be Dynamics. So now going into that, this user, as you can see right here, has access to GP2, and then the default schema should be DBO. That is what it should be. You don't really need to mess with it, do a lot of stuff. Just keep it a DBO, keep it simple. And then if we select this one, so the two things that I have found that work best are, well, you will absolutely need DB underscore data reader. This is a role that you will absolutely need for this user. Without it, obviously you can't read the data, and that's troublesome when you're trying to get your data to come into a reporting tool. And then the other one I always add is Dyn group. Sometimes it goes where you might, it's not exactly a requirement like data reader, but I found it helps. And more times than not, it will aid in that connection rather than break it or cause it to not work. So with that, that's about the extent of what you need for that SQL user. Pretty straightforward, simple stuff. It's just a simple user that can log into your SQL server. It has access to your GP database, whether it be named Dynamics or something different, and it needs data reader and Dyn group. And make sure that the password won't expire or need to be changed. That's the extent of that. For the SQL side with the SQL user, then obviously if we go here and we go to our actual gateway folder, because we can always see what is connected to what here. So if I go ahead and follow the physical path, which it's just program x86, it's here in the PopDoc folder, Dynamics GP Data Gateway, and then it's in this file right here. This is the one that matters the most. This is your app settings. If this is wrong, the gateway won't work. So we're just gonna open this up with Notepad. So as you can see, we're here in Notepad, and I use token authentication for my gateway I set up. But one of the big keys is this will be, all of this, anything that's sensitive information is encrypted. As you can see, I have my server name, database, I have the username, and then the password is encrypted, as well as my token is encrypted. And if I were to run a basic authentication, that's encrypted as well. This is just an encrypted blank right here. To which for this, it's as simple as from that U to that second equal. Delete that. Save the file. All right, so we'll have to actually run Notepad as an administrator to do that, but essentially you get the point. Here's where your information's housed, and that is the basics that goes into really the SQL side of things. There's not many places the connection can really go wrong there, whether it be maybe the user doesn't have the right permissions, or it could be using a different port to listen to SQL that's not the standard SQL port. But either way, it's pretty straightforward and good to go from there. So again, thank you so much for watching this video. If you like watching stuff like this, please continue coming back to our YouTube channel where we put up stuff like this all the time. Thank you and have a nice day.